Hey everybody, how's it going? It's the Daily Shooter, and if you haven't heard yet, California's Governor Gavin Newsom signed 15 new gun control bills into law yesterday alone. These new gun control bills are probably the most overreaching and most unconstitutional bills to reach the governor's desk yet. These are actually bills that the previous governor, Jerry Brown, had already vetoed, but Gavin Newsom, being as liberal and as progressive as he can, just went ahead, took the pen, and signed 15. So let's talk about the 15 that he signed today and kind of how it's going to affect those people living in the state of California. This channel is proud to be supported by the Firearms Policy Coalition. Make sure you check that link in the description box, become a member, and donate when you can. It's important because they're going to need our help if they're going to be fighting back in the court system against all of these new laws that have come out over the past 5 years. Now, also, for those people that have been asking, and there's been quite a few of you, these stickers are now back in the store. I have a bunch of them that are in stock and ready to ship out, free shipping at thedailyshooter.com. One of the ways that I'm helping to support my own channel is by selling something that you guys can actually buy. So we have 300 blackout, we have 9mm, 5.56, 7.62. We've got latch stickers, side stickers, top stickers, as well as the Daily Shooter logo stickers you guys can get. And for those people that support the channel, we've got the new stickers, which is the Daily Shooter Freedom Alliance stickers. Go ahead and check those out as well over at thedailyshooter.com. Now, you guys might remember that I made a video just a few days ago. It was called A Warning to Californians, and it was basically a warning about the new gun control bills that were sitting on Gavin Newsom's desk. In that video, I had no idea whether or not he was going to sign just a couple of them, if he was going to sign a bunch of them. I really wasn't expecting that he was going to sign 15 of them, so I was kind of taken by surprise by this. Now, I mean, it's Gavin Newsom. He's a tyrant. He's scum of the earth. You know, I shouldn't have expected anything less than this, but nonetheless, that's what came down. So we have 15 gun control bills that we need to talk about now that have all been signed into law by this governor. We all know that they're unconstitutional. We all know that, you know, none of these laws can supersede the Constitution, but as long as law enforcement is willing to enforce these laws, then this is a conversation that we need to have, because we need to make sure that we can have this stuff overturned. So 15 laws. The first one we're going to talk about, we're going to touch on some of these, or at least all of them, but we're going to go into a little bit more depth on a few of them. Now, the first one I want to talk about is SB 61. You guys might know of SB 61. I talked about it a few days ago again. That's the one that limits Californians to one firearm, or basically one application for a firearm per 30 days. So right now under California law, you can buy a handgun, one handgun every 30 days, and that's all that the Crown allows you to get. You can buy multiple rifles, lowers, shotguns. So if you wanted to go into the store right now and buy a pistol and a shotgun, that's perfectly fine. But I believe this new law is going to take effect on January 2021. And at that point, if you walk into a shop and you want to buy a rifle, that's going to be it. You had one application in your 30 days. You're going to have to wait 30 days now before you can buy a handgun or any other firearm for that matter. It's one firearm for 30 days. Now, there's a little bit more to this bill as well. And if we read down, this actually affects those people who are under 21 in California, because the way that the law was written, they sort of amended the 21 and over to buy a firearm in California law. So let's go ahead. I'm just going to read this to you real quick. Bear with me. This is a very big deal, okay? Existing law, subject to exemptions, prohibits a person from making more than one application to purchase a firearm or a handgun within a 30-day period, and it goes over that prohibition. But if we scroll down, it says, existing law prohibits a licensed firearm dealer from selling a firearm to a person under 21 years of age. Existing law provides an exemption to this prohibition for the sale of a firearm other than a handgun to a person 18 years of age or older who has a valid hunting license, is a law enforcement officer as specified, or is an honorably discharged member of the armed forces. Existing law makes a violation of the prohibition of this crime. So basically what they're saying is that there were some exemptions. If you were under 21, you had a valid hunting license, or you were law enforcement, something like that, then you were kind of cut out of that and you could still buy a firearm. This bill would prohibit the sale of semi-automatic centerfire rifle to any person under the age of 21, except law enforcement officer or active duty member of the armed forces. So now it doesn't even say anymore about dishonorably discharged. It says active duty member of the armed forces as specified, and they also got rid of the hunting permit. So if you're somebody who has a valid hunting license in California and you're like, I can still go buy a rifle because, you know, I have this hunting license, they went ahead and they got rid of that as well. So what does this mean? This means 1 gun a month, and if you're under 21, they've basically completely screwed you over now. You are finished. You don't have any constitutional rights in the eyes of California or Gavin Newsom. Now, this next one is one that I'm going to go into a little bit more detail as well, because it is so far-reaching that I think a lot of people just won't believe it. The rest of them will go over the SB numbers and the AB numbers, and then I'll put a link down in the description box where you can actually go to the legislative info website. You'll be able to put in the AB or the SB number, and then that'll bring up the text if you want to read a little bit more about that bill. So if you find interest in the brief description that I give you, you can go research it more for yourself. But the next one that I want to talk about is AB 879. So 879, this is the precursor part ban. Okay, so not the ban, but the precursor part regulations. Now, if you guys are wondering what a precursor part is, a precursor part by government standards is anything that you would use essentially to complete and finish a firearm. So if I have a lower receiver and I want to get a trigger, that would be considered a precursor part. Under this new law, that precursor part could no longer be shipped directly to my home. It would have to be shipped to an FFL where I'd have to go through a background check in order to pick up that part. So we're talking about buffer tubes, we're talking about buffer springs, handguards, bolt carrier groups, lowers, frames. All of the stuff that you would need in order to complete a firearm will no longer be able to be shipped to Californians directly to their homes. They'll have to be shipped to an FFL. Likelihood that you're going to have to pay some type of transfer fee. There's another likelihood that you're going to have to pay some type of background check fee. There is a lot of fees, I think, that are going to be associated with this. And essentially what they're doing is they're saying, look, anything that you do with your firearm, we want to know about it. If you change the handguard, put on a new stock, add a grip, get a new upper receiver, we want to know about it. Right now in the state of California, if you have a completed lower, which is the serialized part of the firearm, and you want to switch uppers, you want to go from an 18-inch to a 16-inch 5.56 upper, you just buy an upper, and the upper can be shipped to you because, again, the lower is the serialized part. Under the new law, again, the upper receiver would have to be shipped to the FFL. You'd have to go to that FFL, and you'd have to go through that background check and, whatever other processes that they're going to add here. I'm not exactly sure when this one's going to be implemented or when it could be implemented, but I believe that I had read it was 2024 when this thing would actually take place. So again, you can see here that the government has their fingers now in every little piece of what you are doing with your firearm, even after you already possess the serialized part. This also pertains to 80% lower receivers. So currently you can have an 80% lower shipped to you, but if you plan on building out that 80% lower, then you'd have to register for a serial number and have the serial number inscribed on a metal piece and go through all that stuff, which I don't think too many people in California are even doing anymore. But under the new law, even the 80% lower has to be shipped to an FFL. It's just mind-blowing. And this is the one that was actually previously vetoed by Jerry Brown. I think even Jerry Brown realized how far overreaching this was. Gavin Newsom being, the ultra-progressive liberal, I'm sure he just signed in a matter of seconds. Now, the next 13 that we're going to take a look at here, we'll briefly talk about. I'll give you guys the AB number or the SB number. Again, there'll be a link down below to the legislative info website where you'll be able to search that up and read more about it if you would like to. Now, I'm getting this information directly from the Firearms Policy Coalition newsletter. If you guys haven't signed up for that, I suggest you do that. You get breaking news a lot faster than I can make a video, edit it, and then upload it to YouTube. So it's a good thing to have. Now, we're going to start off with AB 12. AB 12 comes from a Democrat out of Thousand Oaks. It extends the duration of a gun violence restraining order, aka red flag law, to a maximum of 5 years instead of 1. So right now, with these red flag laws, which if you ask me are just unconstitutional seizures of your property, the problem is that they can take your firearms up to 1 year. Okay, so if you're trying to fight back against this, they can keep them up to a year. Now they've went ahead and extended that to 5 years. So they can essentially take your property without compensation and hold on to it for up to 5 years under this new law. So it's just absolutely astonishing. Now, the next one is AB 61. It kind of piggybacks off of that same red flag law issue, okay? So this is out of a Democrat out of San Francisco, which expands on the type of people and the number of people that actually can report a gun violence restraining order against you. Here's the scary part. One of those people is an employee. For all of you people who own your own business out there or who have ever had an employee, have you ever had a disgruntled employee that was really, really pissed at you after you fired him or after you let him go when you caught him stealing money or something like that? An employee can now file a gun violence restraining order against you under these new laws. So let me go ahead and read what the Firearm Policy Coalition here. A Democrat out of San Francisco allows an employee, coworker, employer, coworker, employee, or teacher to file a petition requesting that your guns be confiscated without due process. Employer, your employer, okay? So you're out in the yard talking about your guns that you have. You're going to go shooting this weekend or something like that, have some fun, and somebody overhears you, an employer. Yeah, they can actually file just because they don't have any understanding of exactly what you're talking about. So the next one is going to be AB 164, Democrat out of Riverside, holds any person subject to a valid restraining order, injunction, or protective order issued out of state to the same restrictions on buying or possessing firearms in California as they are under in the state where the order or injunction is operative. So if you are somebody in Nevada who has a restraining order against them or some type of protective injunction, when you go to California, the same rules are going to apply over there with AB 164. The next one we have here is AB 339. Again, Democrat out of Thousand Oaks requires law enforcement agencies to develop and adopt written policies and standards regarding the use of gun violence restraining orders. So this law basically says, okay, we're going to be taking the guns for 5 years. We're going to add the amount of people that can actually file a restraining order against somebody and unconstitutionally seize their property. We want you to come up with some type of written rule and policy and procedure for this. And so now we got our law enforcement who, for the most part, doesn't want any part of this because they don't want to be the ones that are going to have to kick down the door while all these lawmakers are up there being protected by them. Nonetheless, it's all really bad. The next one we have here is AB 521, Democrat out of Palo Alto, requires the University of California to develop a training program for doctors on the prevention of firearm-related injury and death. The prevention. Okay, so they're going after the university now to come up with training programs for doctors to prevent firearm-related injury or death. So now it's up to doctors to tell us, how to live our lives other than just being healthy. Now it's you see how they're moving into kind of it's a health concern. It's a public health hazard is what they like to say, right? The next one is AB 879. We already talked about that. That is the precursor parts, 80% lowers, having to go through a licensed vendor. AB 893, which is Democrat out of San Diego, prohibits the sale of firearms and ammunition at the Del Mar Fairgrounds. Look, these fairgrounds, there's been these fights to keep these gun shows going at these different fairgrounds, and it's incredible to me because they say they're not trying to take your firearm, but they're trying to take your firearm, and then they say that they're not coming for your guns, but then they write rules that allow them to come for your guns, and then now they're trying to stop access to guns. Guys, look, it's all out there, okay? You don't really need to read between the lines anymore. All you have to do is just read, and you'll see exactly what their motive and their issues are. So the next one is, again, Democrat out of Sacramento. Eliminates, this is AB 1279, eliminates the existing $100 limit on processing fees for concealed firearm licenses. Managing local sheriffs can charge as much as they like. Okay, so a sheriff now, where they used to have a maximum that they could charge of $100, now it's limits off. If he wants to charge $1,200 for a concealed carry license, he can do that. And guess what? It's California. They're always trying to fund something new. They're going to try and raise money. They see a big ticket here. It's going to happen. It's 100% going to happen. So try and keep that in mind. Again, that was AB 1279. The next one is AB 1493. Democrat out of San Francisco authorizes a person who is the subject of a gun violence restraining order to submit, authorizes a person who is the subject of a gun violence restraining order to submit a form to the court voluntarily relinquishing their firearms. So if you're the subject of one of these gun violence restraining orders, now there's a form that you could submit where you can turn them all in yourself. So yeah, trying to look out for people's rights, I guess. So that was 1493. The next one's going to be AB 1548, Democrat out of Encino. Okay, this one right here codifies the California State Nonprofit Security Grant Program to improve the physical security of nonprofit organizations that are high risk of violent attacks or hate crimes due to ideology, beliefs, or mission. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to strengthen that from hate groups. We're going to go ahead and spend more money there when they could just hire private security. AB 1603, this is a Democrat out of Oakland. Every Democrat's got their finger in something here. Let's see. Okay, codifies the California Violence Intervention and Prevention Grant Program to help reduce violence in communities that are despondently impacted by violence. Disproportionately impacted by violence. I know a great way to stop violence. It's to allow people to be armed. Because when the bad guys can run around freely and know that pretty much you're in California, there's a good chance you're not concealed carrying or open carrying because it's legal in most of the places, well, there's a good chance that I can go ahead and I can rob you or I can assault you. If the bad guy has to think, maybe this guy is armed, maybe he'll think twice before actually doing it. Or guess what? You'd just be on equal playing fields with the bad guys and maybe crime would go down. So you want to see crime go down and disproportionately impacted by violence in these communities? That's how you do it. You allow people to defend themselves. AB 1669, this is a Democrat out of Alameda, updates the existing law by applying the same gun show regulations that already applied to firearms dealers, ammunition, and vendors as well. So, when you go to a gun show, all of these new laws are going to be essentially the same there. So if I go to a gun show, you can walk into a gun show, you see all these different booths, they're selling handguards and selling different parts and stuff like that. And at a gun show, if I wanted to go in California to, let's say, buy an AR, I would have to get that AR, the serial number, the paperwork and everything, and I have to take it usually to something in the back where they are connected to the internet where they can do the background check and fill out all the paperwork and do all of that stuff at the gun show. That's how it works in California. You don't just walk into a gun show and go, hey, look at this new thing I got and walk out. What they want to do now is if you go into a gun show and you see handguards or you see triggers or you see all of this stuff right now, which is not serialized and not currently regulated, like an upper receiver, now you're going to have to go through the same thing. Even at a gun show, you're going to have to take it to the back, you're going to have to fill out paperwork, and you're going to have to go through a background check in order to pick it up. That's essentially what they're saying here. So the next one is a Democrat out of La Cañada, Flint Ridge, prohibits the sale of a semi-automatic centerfire rifle to any person under the age of under 21 years of age. Okay, we thought that that was kind of covered already in SB 61, where they essentially said that unless you're law enforcement or active duty military, then you're SOL. So we already have that one, but you know, this, I guess we'll have to read the text a little bit more on this one. And then the last one here, we have SB 376, another Democrat, La Cañada, Flint Ridge, limits the number of personally owned firearms an individual can sell without a license. So essentially what they're saying is right now we have a specific limit of firearms that an individual can sell in a given time period where he wouldn't need a license to do that. So if I wanted to go and, you know, say my buddy wants to buy a rifle from me, and I say, okay, sure, we go buy that rifle. Well, if I do that more than their specified amount of times now in a given time period, I'm going to have to get an FFL in order to do that. So it's just out of control. And you can see that if we take all of these new gun control measures and we kind of squish it into one ball, they've essentially demolished the Second Amendment in California. It really, for most all intents and purposes, it doesn't exist. You know, the same scrutiny cannot be applied to the First Amendment or the Third, Fourth, or the Fifth Amendment without people completely freaking out. You know, there's no way that you could go through all of these processes, background checks, licenses, you know, having to go to a licensed vendor in order to practice your Second Amendment rights. All of these different laws that exist, firearms bans, assault weapons bans, and you name it, California has it right now. And if you were to apply that to any other right in the Bill of Rights, people would absolutely go nuts, and it just would not stand. So I don't see why we should let it stand for the Second Amendment. But that's what's happening in California. Gavin Newsom is, like I said before, 2 years, 3 years ago, you know, if this guy gets into office and he has the complete control of the Assembly and the Senate, and he's got a pen in his hand and gun control makes it to his desk, he's going to sign it, and that's exactly what happened. I got to be honest, I get pissed every single time I read this. Every time I read these, every time I read the text of a bill, I just can't anymore. I'm so angry at everything that's happened over there. It's not right to the good people of the state of California who are over there. You know, they have family, they have work, they're struggling to make ends meet with high gas prices, high taxes, high property costs. I mean, everything that they have to deal with, and now you have a government that says, look, we're the only ones that are allowed to have these firearms, not you, the people. I think that we have completely lost what what a democratic republic is supposed to be all about. You know, it's just disgusting. Anyway, If you guys want more information, again, click the link down below. Please support the Firearms Policy Coalition, because one thing I can guarantee you is that these guys are not going to ever give up. I don't care if there's a constitutional Congress in order to overturn the Second Amendment. No, they're never giving up. So help support them as well, and any other local gun group that you feel like should be deserving of your money. Make sure it doesn't go to anybody who's paying exorbitant salaries, like millions of dollars, to their CEO or anything like that. It's just ridiculous. Make sure it's going back into the fight for our Second Amendment rights. I want to thank you all very much for watching. Please like, subscribe. Have a great day.